All right, we're picking back up in our open session with our tax rate hearing. As provided by state statute and duly published, a public hearing will be held at 5:30 p.m., at which time citizens may be heard on the property tax rates proposed to be set by Rolla School District 31, a political subdivision. The tax rates will be set to produce the revenues which the budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019 shows to be required from the property tax. And that is our Kindra Atkinson.
Okay, so as Mrs. Jameson just said, annually the school district must prepare a tax levy calculation, and the tax rate forms and supporting documentation are on pages 4 through 17 of your board packets. The tax rate calculation is governed by specific constitutional and statutory directives, such as a filing deadline of September 1st and having a public hearing. Additionally, our calculation has been submitted to and approved by the State Auditor's Office. Now, when completing the tax rate calculation worksheets, we start by entering July 1st assessed valuations, not appraised values. Appraised value is similar to market value, while assessed value is the amount that the tax rate is then applied to. So for an example, an item that is categorized as a residential property has an assessed value of 19% of its appraised value. So if we look at a property valued at $150,000 multiplied by 19%, we come up with $28,500 in assessed value. So moving forward and looking at our actual assessed values this year compared to last, we realized $16.3 million valuation increase, which is just under 4% over the previous year.
Kindra, just stop you. Can you pull the microphone down?
Oh. Hold it down. Good, thank you. Okay, in addition, the West Side Marketplace and the corresponding TIF are now on the books and are reflected here. The $16.3 million increase is due to three factors. The base assessed valuation increased just over $413,000. We have real estate new construction and improvements totaling $9.2 million, and an increase in personal property totaling $6.6 million. Those specific calculations are on page 10 of your packet. Now this slide is going to provide us the calculation of base assessed valuation. That is the assessed value of the property that is in the district both this year and last, and then the corresponding percentage increase. This is an important calculation because the Hancock Amendment limits revenue growth on existing property to the lesser of three factors. The actual increase in value, in this case 0.998%, the Consumer Price Index, which is currently 1.9%, or the statutory maximum increase of 5%. So in this case for us this year, the 0.0998% represents the permitted revenue growth on property that was on the books in 2018. That percent is then used to calculate the total revenue permitted in the current year, which is in turn used to calculate our tax rate ceiling, which we will get to. All of that is on, the recap of that is on page 11 of your packet for those calculations. And then we have Prop C. That is a law which passed in 1982 and provides a 1% statewide sales tax. Our district is one of a handful of districts out of 518 in Missouri that does not have a Prop C waiver. Therefore, we are required to reduce our property tax rate by 1/2 of the Prop C revenue received in the prior fiscal year. So this is the data used for this year's calculation and the prior two. The Prop C calculation worksheet is on page 14 of your packet if you're interested. And it shows that this year's rollback is 43.11 cents. So looking at how we calculate the operating tax levy. We divide the total revenue permitted by the adjusted assessed valuation and then multiply that by 100, in this case resulting in a tax rate ceiling of 3.7614. We then subtract the required Prop C rollback to calculate the adjusted operating levy, which is calculated to be 3.3303. And again, those calculations are on page 11 of your packet. So if you wanted to see how the permitted revenue is calculated, and then again, the adjusted assessed valuation. It gets very complicated, so I started to put it on the slides here, and then it was just going all over the place, so. Okay, so then the debt service levy calculation is based upon our total debt obligations for the next 2 calendar years, the anticipated debt service fund balance, and the total assessed valuation. That calculation's on page 12 of your packet, that's Form C. This year, the calculation allows for a debt service levy of 44.56 cents. However, we are recommending that the board approves continuing the rollback to this levy this year by 14.56 cents for a total debt service levy of 30 cents. We have worked closely with our bond advisors at Stiefel, and this amount of levy is determined that it's what is needed to allow the district to sufficiently service its debt in the coming years. So here you can see the trends in levies as compared to assessed valuation. It is important to note that in 2015, 16, and 17, the district phased in a voter-approved 25-cent levy increase to fund early childhood education and 7th grade activities. So looking at that same local residence mentioned earlier, we can calculate the tax owed for 2019. The assessed value, again, was calculated to be $28,500, multiplied by the proposed tax rate of 3.6303, and then divided by 100 for a total tax due of $1,034.64. That amounts to $17.50 for the year over last year. So this slide, I realize, is a bit hard to read, but it's an important one. Assuming no other district changes their tax rate, Rolla will rank 22 on the list of 27 districts in the Camdens Salary Survey, and of those districts with a debt service levy, ours will continue to be the lowest. I would also like to point out that while we have one of the lowest total levies of these districts, our teacher salaries are close to the top.
Yeah, that's a slide we use often. You look at everything from bus purchases to lunch prices, staffing ratios, those kinds of things. Those districts below us are in our conference for the most part, and all are impacted either by assessed value because of tourism like the Lake of the Ozarks or federal impact aid such as Waynesville. So very proud of where that is. If you were to put that same chart up there with teacher salaries, as Kindra said, we'd be at 1, 2 across all categories of comparison.
Okay, so may I answer any questions?
I have a question on something that's not covered here. It has to do with the TIF.
Okay.
West, and we are to receive a certain amount of revenue. I know it's not in these calculations. So,
I don't have that with me, but I
Okay.
can research that.
but it's general revenue. It's operating revenue. Okay, very good.
Yes.
Kindra, on the voluntary rollback, how did you say that is determined?
So the voluntary rollback, that basically what we do, we actually start with what is necessary to service the debt
Okay.
over the next several years till the end of the debt is paid off. So we basically start there and determine what the rollback needs to be. So again, we were authorized to levy, what was it? 40.
Well, I'll speak. Early on, the debt service ceiling was 32.9 cents. 10 years ago, when we started the voluntary rollback to 25 cents, and the servicing of the debt for bond issues in 05 and 10, we paid one off early, if you recall, saving $200,000 in interest. The schedule gets more aggressive as you work your way through the repayment of those 20-year bonds, unless you refinance them. So as that ceiling then continues to go up to 44 cents, it puts a strain on the balance in the debt service levy to try to service at that same amount. We arrived at 25 cents based upon the financial advisor at the time, which was George K. Baum, saying you can service your debt at 25 cents, not levying the ceiling. With our new financial advisors on board and the way the economy has changed and how much debt we carry, which isn't very much, as you saw in that slide too, the ability to maintain that same payment rollback, so we're still rolling it back, we just can't roll it back as far
Right.
in order to
So
maintain the payment.
what happened since George K. Baum made their calculations was that our growth in our taxable base didn't grow as much as what they had predicted.
Correct.
And so Stiefel used a lower percentage growth rate, which means that we need to have a higher rate to get the same amount of revenue.
That's correct.
Yeah. So we had a good growth this year,
We did.
and so that may, future years, they may recalculate that.
Yeah,
And
very,
certainly, even with
very,
this growth this year, if we didn't, we still had a debt service levy of 25 cents. Within 10 years from now, our debt service fund would still be dangerously depleted.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
and I lost my train of thought. It'll come back. This is an interesting year too, as we have reassessment, we had growth in assessed value, and we had new construction. Typically, one of those lines would be zero. You know, we wouldn't be, I think your question about subtracting the 15 million seems pretty significant, and it is, but that's part of that mechanical calculation that you have to use. So we had a good year. It's not been that way every year, and rolling in the phase into the levy has helped, so. Thank you.
any other questions? I just need approval of this levy.
Should I go back
You
and
can
read this?
ask for any public comment
This, yeah.
first.
Okay, so that was our presentation. If there are any public comments, you can come forward at this time. Please state your name and address for the record. Persons wishing to comment will be granted 5 minutes. Okay. I don't see anyone stepping forward at this time. And do I have a motion to adopt the 2019 school tax levy?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you.
I would add to that, we have our auditors on site at the end of this month from Graves and Associates. So this will be the first audit that you've gone through too. So some of the things they point out will hopefully be affirmations of the moves that we've made during the course of the year. They'll recognize the debt repayment and all the other things that they'll present to us in November. So they'll be here, Kindra, August 28th. Yeah, and they stay for a while upstairs and go through our books. And they leave, and then they come back with the final report, which will, again, reconnect us to what we just did and how prudent we are with the finances trusted to us. So, thank you, Kindra. Good.